Hello again. Well, this is part 3 of this series of what Jane Burgermeister did when she laid criminal charges against the biggest organisations and the President of the United States. She laid these charges with the FBI. Now, by now, you would have realised that we're dealing with a criminal syndicate. We're dealing with the biggest criminal syndicate globally, internationally, worldwide, and like any international criminal syndicate, they all must work through a reputable front. They always work through reputable fronts. All criminals have always done that. And these people were very clever because they set it up way back after World War II, because the same people were involved in financing the winners and the losers in that war. But they didn't lose because they had a deal going with the vanquished, that the vanquished would pick up the bill to pay for the winner. There's another thing now you've got to realise, that these reputable fronts that they have developed and worked through is none other than the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the CDC, the FDA, NATO, CFR, Trilateral Commission, Federal Banking System, just to mention a few. In the charges, these criminal charges that have been laid, they mention as defendants President Obama, Margaret Chan, Director General of the World Health Organization, David Nabarro of the United Nations, Kathleen Sebelius, Secretary of the Health and Human Services, and Janet Napolitano of the Homeland Security. Now, these are the people that will issue instructions to the media, the military, the CIA, FEMA, and the FBI to make sure that if you don't take the World Health Organization's vaccinations, which we've proven to you already that they are deadly, and if you don't take it, then they're going to lock you up in detention camps, which have been built all over the country. And guess who got the contract to build them? None other than Dick Cheney, the Deputy Leader of the United States of America. So this is what we're going to show you now about how they were going to go about it. And come with me through Jane Burgermeister's report that she's already given to the FBI. So I'm giving you something that is now worldwide and everybody knows about it. And there's millions of people now printing up flyers, putting them into letterboxes. Why? Because they know the media is not going to alert their friends and the people around them. Come with me now. But there's more in this criminal attempted genocide by the World Health Organization and the other powers to be. Read it with me, it's on your screen. Constitutional issues, the legality versus the illegality of jeopardizing the life, health and public good for mass vaccinations. The issue of immunity and compensation as evidence of intent to commit a crime. Evidence as to the use of chemtrails for population reduction. And we've given you lots of reports to try and get the chemtrails taken away from Australia, and every time they get complaints, and there's been, and we put in the report to you, many thousands of complaints have gone to both state governments and the federal government, and they get no replies. It's not debated, and in fact they say they don't exist. Evidence as to the existence of an international corporate crime syndicate. Evidence as to the existence of the Illuminati. Evidence of the Illuminati's involvement in the current collapse of the world's financial system. Evidence as to the depopulation agenda of the Illuminati, Bilderbergs, and their involvement in the engineering and the release of artificial swine flu virus. Now, as we said to you before, we always knew that the secret societies that President Kennedy was murdered for, we knew that they were gearing up for a new world order takeover of the world, and we wouldn't be able to tell you about it. The papers wouldn't print a story about it because it's all regarded as a conspiracy. Well, now you can see it's not a conspiracy, this is real. Evidence as to the genocide agenda by means of weaponized flu being discussed at the annual Bilderberg meeting in Athens from May 14 to May 17, 2009. Then the conclusions and the defendants. Now let me show you the defendants. The criminal charges are filed against Baxter and the World Health Organization. Criminal charges are filed against Baxter and the World Health Organization in Switzerland, Austria and Switzerland. Parliamentary answers to the Baxter incident. excerpts from the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989. Now here's the introduction and the summary of the claims. She says here, I'm presenting evidence of the acts of bioterrorism that are in a violation of criminal law of the United States by a group operating within the United States and foreign direction, specifically under the direction of international bankers who control, amongst other financial institutions, the Federal Reserve, as well as the international government organisations, specifically the World Health Organization and the United Nations and NATO. Evidence is presented to show that an international corporate criminal syndicate is intent on carrying out mass genocide against the United States population by using an artificial, genetically engineered flu pandemic virus to cause death and injury, and having annexed high government officials in the United States. And of course they try to do that in every country in the world that's under a treaty to the United Nations, including our country here, Australia. Specifically, evidence is presented that defendants President Barack Obama, President of the United States, David Nabarro, UN Systems Coordinator for Influenza, Margaret Chan, Director General of the World Health Organization, Kathleen Sebelius, Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Secretary Janet Napolitano, she's the Department of Homeland Security, David D. Rothschild banker, David Rockefeller banker, George Soros banker, Werner Faymann, Chancellor of Austria, Alois Stoger, Austrian Health Minister, amongst others, are part of this international corporate criminal syndicate which has developed, produced, stockpiled and employed the biological weapons to eliminate the population of the United States and other countries for financial and political gain. There's evidence presented for the contending that the defendants did conspire with each other and with others to devise, fund and participate in the final phase of the implementation of a covert international bioweapons program involving, amongst other entities, the pharmaceutical companies Baxter and Novartis, by first bioengineering and then releasing lethal biological agents, specifically first the so-called bird flu virus and second the so-called swine flu virus, in order to have a pretext to the implement and forced mass vaccination program, which will be the means for the administration of a toxic biological agent using the delivery system of an injection. Goes on further to say, causing death and injury to the people of the United States in the violation of the Biological Weapons Anti-Terrorism Act of 1989. And that was passed into law in 1990. It extended the scope of biowarfare materials regulations to conclude private individuals and non-state organisations, including corporations. Here presents the evidence that Baxter AG, Austrian subsidiary of Baxter International, based in Deerfield, IWL, deliberately, willfully and knowingly sent out 72 kilos of live bird flu virus supplied by the World Health Organization at Geneva, Switzerland, in the winter of 2009 to 16 laboratories in 4 countries. This evidence offers clear proof that the pharmaceutical companies and the international government agencies themselves are actively engaged in producing, developing, manufacturing, distribution of biological agents classified as the most deadly weapons on the planet in order to trigger a pandemic and cause mass deaths. The attachment A is a copy of the criminal charges filed against Baxter and other defendants at the Vienna City Prosecutor's Office on April the 8th, 2009 by Jane Burgermeister, dual Irish-Austrian citizen, resident in Vienna, Austria. It goes on to say the Austrian police are now investigating the incident involving the release of 72 kilos of live bird flu virus from Baxter's lab in North, and that was just happening a few weeks ago. According to 175 of the BWATA, there is extraterritorial federal jurisdiction over an offence under this section committed by or against a national of the United States.